Hello and welcome to Odd Sock Comics. This is my new comic book day haul for Wednesday, August 14th. And I'm going to jump right into the new comics, but then I've got quite a bit of other stuff going on that's going to be interesting. Just if you want to stick around, I'm going to be talking quite a bit about speculation. I have a big stack of books that I picked up in the last week or so that are some speculation plays that I've made. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my thought process for that. But that's going to come after the discussion of the new books that came out this week. So stick around if you're interested in speculation. So first up, I've got my favorite book of the week, which is Silver Surfer Black. Now this is just a fun, trippy book. And I know that people have been talking about the art, the interior art quite a bit. Tradd Moore doing his crazy Tradd Moore thing. This is some LSD trippy art. I mean, the story kind of goes with it. I mean, just there was some fun stuff. This blink right here, closes the eyes, opens them, sees her, closes the eyes, little blink. Just some really cool stuff. But then it gets really trippy. We've got Silver Surfer drilling into the center of Ego, the living planet. All kinds of stuff. They're just having a blast with this. I mean, that's all you can really say. This is just an artist and a storyteller having fun. The story is interesting enough. This one in particular, the story, you can tell that it's moving forward, but this isn't going to be a key. It's not super important, but it's fun. You can tell that they're having fun. They're pushing things and expressing things, and obviously the art is it's just out there. It's just crazy. I love it. This is cool. This was my favorite book that I read this week. Every page was interesting. I spent more reading this than I probably should have, just enjoying it. And look at that cover. That's crazy. So I'm a big Silver Surfer Black fan. Love the art. I know that that's a little bit controversial, a little bit mixed reviews on that one, but for me, this is perfect. This is an adult. I say that a lot. This is a book that I don't think kids would get. I don't think kids would appreciate it. I don't think people who are buying books hoping for the 90s are going to appreciate this. But that's not me. I'm into comic books as an adult. I loved it. So, there you go. All right, next up, for some good reads, you have Powers of X. There's a lot of stuff going on in this. I don't think this one was quite as key, but it's so developmental in this new way to look at the universe. I think the powers of it's Powers of 10. And the way that they're expressing that, it's analogous. It gives you kind of reference points if you're familiar with working with scientific notation or powers of 10 or anything like that. It works, but obviously it's not really combined. But it's just showing how, as you step out in those exponential distances, things can change significantly. And it's playing with that entire space very significantly. It's a really fun, really interesting way to look at things. It definitely is Powers of 10, not Powers of X, which is obnoxious, but still, I think it's cool. I enjoyed the book. This one's not as key, but it's still very interesting. It gets things set up for this ongoing story. I'm worried about what they're going to do when they move towards an X-Men with all of the little teams and the stuff that they're talking about. I don't think that that's going to work very well. I don't think they should have 6 X books on. I think they should have 1 or 2. Probably reduce it to 1 for a while until things make sense. But this is fun. This is a really cool reset. I'm enjoying reading it. First time that I've ever enjoyed reading X-Men, because I have never read it historically, and it's the first time that I've picked it up, and it's been interesting since I started buying comics 2.5 years ago, or whatever it's been now. So, Powers of X number 2, very cool. Powers of 10. Okay, next up, I have Conan the Barbarian Exodus. And, I've been buying Conan the Barbarian. I enjoy it. This one is Esad Ribic. Is that his name? Whew, I feel like I'm screwing something up here. But this is the guy that's been drawing the Conan series that Jason Aaron is writing. He wrote and drew this one. I think it's Esad Ribic. I hate when I screw those. Yeah, Esad Ribic, writer and artist. This isn't his cover art. I think this one is the Nick Bradshaw and John Rausch, which I thought was really cool. But this book, very interesting. No English words inside of it. It's just following the story of Conan leaving Samaria. Is that what it's called? Cimmerian? Samaria. Would love if I knew how to pronounce these things. But it's pretty cool. You watch through it. It's storytelling in an artistic form. There's not language. It's one of the things that comic books do very well. It's this, silent film equivalent. But you're going through, there's not a lot of text, there's not things that you understand, but you still get the story, you still get the development and the character. Very cool. Well done, honestly. And then at the end it shows a map, and so you can kind of piece, okay, this is, as he's traveling outside, this is the path that he's taken, and the story progressed along this map. So it's a journey story, which is, it's cool, and it was a really cool way to do it and tie it together with the map at the end. This cover has nothing to do with the art inside, the story inside, or anything. It's just a cool cover. All right, so that was the 3 Marvel books that I read. I got one DC book this week, Batman and the Outsiders, and I really enjoyed this. This one was a great book. You had an interaction between Black Lightning and Batman, where this is what Tom King needs. So Bryan Edward Hill, who wrote this one, he used the situation that Tom King has set up in the main Batman run, where he's got all this internal conflict and stuff. But rather than playing him as this little weakling, he plays him as somebody who's strong and knows that he's facing something difficult. And instead of moping like Tom King has been doing with Batman, he plays him strong, and he passes and delegates the responsibility to Black Lightning and to the Outsiders team. Very cool. Some really cool things. Black Lightning as a teacher, seeing all the opportunities to develop his team. Very cool, very respectable, good characters. Really like this one. Like I said, and I'll say it every time, I hope Bryan Edward Hill gets Batman when Tom King is done. I would love to get rid of Tom King and put Bryan Edward Hill there. He can handle it. He can treat Batman well with what Tom King has done to him. So that's my hope. We'll see where we end up. All right, and I got one more for the read. I picked up Once and Future #1 from Boom Studios. This one was kind of the indie spec everybody knew about and has been talking about. It was a fun book. It is based on King Arthur, obviously. Anytime you see Once and Future, you're going to be referencing King Arthur. In the modern time, Kieran Gillen, I think that's who did Die. Good writer, fantasy style, interesting stuff. I was really interested in this one because I love the King Arthur mythos and stereotype, and you can kind of see that we may have a dark aspect to King Arthur. That could be really interesting. There are 2 things that I'm kind of iffy about. So number 1 is that if this is a really modern take. So the King Arthur legend and archetype and storytelling is a component of the entire Western mythos. I took classes on this in college. One called Intellectual Traditions of the West, which was talking all about the archetypes that we've developed in the West and how our stories are told. And another one called Western Mythologies that was very, very into the esoteric and what Arthur means in the esoteric development of Western thought. Really cool philosophical classes, very focused, a lot of focus on the King Arthur legend. And I always assume that people who are telling the King Arthur story either know all of that or they know none of that. And if they know none of that, they never get it right. If they know all of that, there's all of this really cool stuff that you can seep in. I did not see any of that stuff seeping into this story, and so I'm afraid they're going to screw it up. I'll give them a chance. It's the first issue. It was fun to read, but it's like if you ignore all of the deeper aspects of the King Arthur mythos, it's not going to connect with people who grew up in the West, because this is such a core component of storytelling. But we'll see. And I have one more book that I bought this week, new out this week just for the cover, and it is, of course, Catwoman Artgerm cover. Love that, the cartoon Catwoman. Very cool style. Fantastic. Just love it. That's it for new books this week. But like I said, I've got a lot more going on, especially talking speculation. Let me get into a couple of books that are not speculative, but that I picked up over the last week. Speaking of Art Germ, on Saturday, I went to a little tiny comic show nearby, and I had a lot of thoughts happen while I was there. And I spent an hour and a half, 2 hours walking the show, looking through some boxes, and I didn't find a lot of interesting stuff at all. There really was not. I was hoping that I would find a Marvel Spotlight number 5. I had the cash in my hand to buy it, whether it was whatever it cost, basically. If I found a good one that was, a good market price, I would have picked it up. Nobody had it. There weren't a lot of valuable books at the show at all. I think the most valuable book I saw was $600 or so. I can't even remember what it was, but not a lot of interesting stuff there. I picked up one book, walked the show for an hour and a half, picked up one book. I found this in a dollar bin. This is the first professional work in comic books of Art Germ in English, I believe. I already have it. I have it in a CBCS 9.4, I think, maybe 9.2. It's hard to get it very good. This one has a nice spine tick right there, so this one isn't any better. But it's a hard book to find, and I was just cruising through this dollar bin, and I was about to finish. I was almost ready to walk away, and the guy that was sitting in his chair there is like, "Can I help you with anything? Are you having any luck?" I was like, and as I got to that book, and I was like, "Actually, yes, I know exactly what this is." Pulled it out, paid $1 for it. Good piece for an Art Germ collector, and I'll probably end up flipping this one. It's a hard book to find, so I'll put it out there for somebody who knows what they want and is looking for it. I picked up 2 more. This was from a local shop. I paid basically cover price for these. They're the old Thanos run, the Jeff Lemire, and I think issue 13 switched over to Donnie Cates. Maybe it happened an issue earlier than that. But I've been trying to pick up the whole run. I have a few issues here and there, mostly from... It used to be like 6 to 11 that I didn't have. So 7 and 8 fell in there. I think I still need 6. I still need 9. But I'm getting pretty close to completing that. But anytime, if I can find them and they're not charging more than cover price, I'll always buy these. Pick up a couple for $2 here and there when I get really lucky. They're not worth anything. It's just I want the run. But that's it. And now I'm going to get into speculation. So I've been thinking a lot about speculation. Let me move these books just so that they're not interfering here. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos on speculation. I'll tell you who I watch. I do watch Comic Book Speculation and Investment, Simple Man's Comics, CBSI shows. I watch what they do. And there are a couple of things about them and the way that they approach it that I think is interesting. And I also watch, but one of the things that they do that I think is really cool, they do a hot and cold list every Wednesday, and I'll just start laying these out. But their hot and cold list is a really cool way to think about speculation, because especially their colds. Now their colds mean things that took off or that they thought were going to go somewhere because there was some basis for them. Sometimes it's just things that used to be worth a lot but aren't, or had some heat but don't anymore. But a lot of times they're talking about things that are interesting or were interesting but have lost, the market has lost interest, so they're kind of depressed in pricing. And that's a really good time if you were thinking about investing in buying them, if you think that there's some reason that they should pick up going forward. Because you're going to be able to get them for that lower market, lower interest price. Now, I've never really been big into flipping. I sell plenty of books, but it's never been because I'm flipping. It's like, okay, I've got a restriction on how many books I can hold. I buy a lot of books to read. If they don't fit in with my collection, I typically move them pretty quickly out. But I kind of was thinking about whether or not speculation is something that I wanted to get in on. And I think I figured out, well, we'll see. I've decided to do a little bit, but let me just tell you, my approach is to only buy things when there's an existing arbitrage opportunity. So that means that the market has spiked, and you can see the market, whether it's on eBay or comic shows or something like that, it's already spiked, but the shops haven't caught up with it. And so there are a few shops around me that don't have their ear on the fast-moving market. They move with the price guides that come out once a year, so they don't see the week-to-week swings of books. But then there are a couple that are watching videos all the time, and they know the heat on new comic books before they even come out. Those shops are not good for finding arbitrage opportunities. But the shops where the owners are a little bit more laid back, a little bit less involved with new books, often are very good places to find books that currently have heat that have not, but they haven't adjusted their prices at the store for those things. So I went to 2 stores this week that fit that style. So I bought some books in both of those. So I've got the Eternals here. Now number 2 I ordered on eBay a while back. That one's hard to find in the wild at all. But I bought it for market price. It's about $25-30 first appearance of the Celestials. But the entire Eternals run is kind of hot right now. The books range from $6 or $7 up to $20 across the board, and I think 19 is the last issue. But so we've got an Eternals movie coming out within the next couple of years. We don't know exactly what the story is going to be, but this is obviously where they're all introduced and where the story starts to build. So I was like, if I can get these for under market price today, I can only imagine that as more clarity to the story comes out, these are going to increase in value. So I picked them up. I think I spent $6 to $8 on each of these books, including this one, and I'll explain this one in a minute. But 19 I think is currently doing pretty well, maybe $25. Most of the rest of these are worth 10 to 15, so they're worth close to, on average, about double what I paid for them. So already there's some arbitrage there. And then when we get closer to the Eternals, as news starts to come out, I would hope that they pop a little bit more. Maybe they won't. If they don't, I've got a cool collection. But I'm definitely doing some speculation on this. Now, I also picked up this book. This one I'm probably going to try to flip right away. This one I think I paid $8 for. This is a 1 in 10 variant of the Neil Gaiman, I think 2006 Eternals run. I've read this digitally. Don't care much for the story. Neil Gaiman's a good writer, but didn't care too much about it. Probably because I don't know the history of the Eternals. But this book, it is pretty hot right now, and I think I should be able to sell this for about $20. I'm going to go ahead and flip it now and see if I can get $20 for it. We'll see. But so that's my first batch of speculation that I picked up this week. All right, next up is a book that I think kind of obviously has to get picked up somewhere for a show. And I found a couple of the key books in this run for basically cover price. I paid $4 to $4.50 for each book here. And book number 1 obviously is the first appearance of everybody. Book number 8 is the first full appearance of Sherlock Frankenstein. They had 2 copies of that. I got those for $4 a piece. And then number 9 isn't anything too special, but it does seem to be pretty valuable. And maybe you guys can hear my baby is making a lot of noise, so I'm going to go check on that. All right, so this is one of those series that I think eventually has to be picked up. I bought them for cheaper than the current market price, and I think that they're always going to be worth that way. They may kind of fade if there's no pickup for a while, but I think this is one of those stories that is definitely eventually going to make it into the more popular entertainment modes, probably TV, Netflix, something like that. It just makes sense. It's a cool story, different take on superheroes, very cool. But so I picked up those for, basically cover price. All right, next, this one was kind of a far out one, not really that interesting, and the book got damaged in shipping. Up in that corner, that thing got bent pretty bad. It's just a free comic book day for My Hero Academia, but what I really wanted was RWBY, which is, I I don't even have this all together. I picked this up for like $2.75 shipped. I was like, yeah, go ahead and send it to me. It's a free book. They got $1 for it. I swear it. That's the reason it was deemed, is because they did so little in packaging. But I think RWBY, I think DC is going to publish some books by them. I'm not entirely sure on that. But I saw a cover that Archerm is going to do for RWBY #1. Don't know much about it. But that's why I just picked it up, just because I think this is supposed to be the first time that they've appeared in comic books. So, not really well, yeah, this one's speculation, but I don't think that I'm actually going to be able to sell it or get anything real out of it. Just kind of fun. And the last one is true speculation, and I'll get into why this one is pretty big. So, I picked up the run of Totally Awesome Hulk. So I've got 1 through... It's not a good way to roll them out here. I'm going to do it backwards. So I've got 1 through 12. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now there are a couple of reasons that I picked these up. One is Lady Hellbender just came back in the Venom Annual. Seems like she might be a love interest or something that's going to come into Venom down the line. That's going to be interesting if that plays out. First appearance of Lady Hellbender is Totally Awesome Hulk #1. Obviously, first cover appearance #2. That was one of the things that was driving it, just mostly for fun. But as I was thinking of whether or not I should pick this one up, I think it really made sense. In the MCU, the Hulk obviously has a place, but he's never been a key character, and the single movies haven't really taken off very well. The Edward Norton one obviously didn't work very well. He left, and we had that shift that was completely unexplained. But, and this is where I get a little bit cynical, I think that for the MCU to continue to grow, and we've kind of already seen this, they're going to be developing towards the Asian market. And as cynical as I am, and as obvious as Marvel and Disney seem to be, their method of entering into another market seems to be to go with characters that line up with those people. That's a very cynical thing to say, but it's obvious, and they do it all the time. They've been emphasizing, they're going to do Shang-Chi, Masters of Kung Fu. That's a start. I think that's interesting. But I wouldn't be... I'm not going to say I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but the basic idea is this is already a mild key. Totally Awesome Hulk #1. It's the first Amadeus Cho as Totally Awesome Hulk. I think he appeared in Amazing Fantasy 15 a little bit before this, but first appearance there, it's always going to be worth a little bit. And so I think I paid, for these 12 books, I paid a total of $35. So I got them for a little under $3 a piece. That's not too much to put into a set like this. It's a good run from a story perspective, so it's one that I should be able to maintain and sell as a story run down the line. So the risk in putting my money into something like this is very, very low. But I think that the upside is there, potentially, because Hulk's a great character. Amadeus Cho, Asian Hulk. We're working for Asian markets. They're going to try to get a more diverse cast. I think this one makes sense as a replacement for some of the guys that have been around for a while. So I don't think it's going to be a one-for-one replacement, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it pop up somewhere. That's all I'm saying. But I did pick it up for that reason. And the real reason that I got it is because it's not hot right now. This book was dirt cheap, $3 a pop for every book in there. Not a big deal. That's shipped. So that's what I'm using for speculation, is can I get these books for less than the market price today? Does the market price exist? And is it likely to collapse? And if the answer is no to it collapsing, then if I can get it for a better than market price, then it's a fine buy to speculate. So that was my rationale here. I've got this big stack of speculation books. This isn't normal for me. But I've been thinking about it. I'm taking some of the books that I already have that kind of fit speculation, and I'm stacking them in kind of my expectation. So it's like, if I can sell this book for 40 or 50 bucks, I'd sell it today, you know? That's kind of where it sits. The rest of these are, you know, I'll probably save for the run. I may try to sell the whole run, but it's like this whole run, if I can get $60 for it, I'd probably do it, because that's pretty even. The Black Hammers, they're pretty valuable right now, but I want to see it pop if there's something announced, and that's when I'll move on the Black Hammer. So hopefully they see a pop of 10 to 15 bucks a book. The Eternals, as things come up, hope to see those pop and see some new excitement with those books. That's the way that I'm looking at it. All of them I bought under their current market price, and that's really where you account for the risk of speculation. We'll say really quickly, I'm just going to put a few more books out here so that these are all here. When I'm talking about when some people talk about speculation, I think that a lot of their conversation is to drive people to buy books. I would not recommend that anybody buy these books for anything other than below market prices right now. If you can only buy something if you can flip it tomorrow for, you know, it's got to be pretty meaningful to justify the amount of time and effort it takes to package a book and get it there on the risk of somebody not liking the condition and all of the different things that can go wrong. But if you can get books that you would be happy flipping tomorrow, but you can store them and maybe get double that within a couple years, that's a really good move. And your total risk is pretty minimal all across the board, because a book that's worth $10 today, if it has any kind of real significance, it's probably going to be worth about $10 at the worst a year from now. So if you only paid $5 for it today, you can sell it a year from now for 10 bucks, probably. That's kind of where things go. But when you're in the speculation world, and I get in speculation with a lot of things, you've got to account for risk and balance it. It's not speculation is one piece of it, but it's really, you have to combine arbitrage with speculation to account for the risk of the speculation. And that's where what I'm really trying to push at, is find the arbitrage opportunities that exist today in the speculation market and play on those. Don't buy things for the market price today, expecting it to go up in the future. This is the difference between speculation. These books I bought with the intention to resell at some point down the line. There are other books that I've bought. Let me see if I can find one really quickly. I've only got a couple. You know, I bought, I'm looking on my wall. I've got Vampirella. I paid, I think, $14 for this book. It's only worth about $10. I don't care. I could not get it for $10 when I wanted it, and I didn't want to see it slip by. This is my book. It's going to go in my collection. I have no intention of ever selling it because it's an art journal book. So that's where it's like, you know, I paid what I was willing to, what I valued the book at, and happy to have it. I'm going to get the Vampirella number 2 as well. So if it's a book that belongs as a part of your collection, pay the market price. That's fantastic. That's all the books on my top 10 list, my 10 goal books for the year. But if your intention is to sell, make sure that you have an arbitrage opportunity first, where you're able to buy it for below the market price. Dollar bin digging is great, except for most dollar bin books will never be worth the amount of time and effort it takes to ship them to somebody. So if you don't have an outlet locally to get rid of them, they're just going to take up space in your collection. That's my view. Maybe somebody's had more success with dollar bin digging, but that's dollar bins are always an opportunity for arbitrage if you know what you're looking for, but it's small pieces. Good returns, but there's so much eaten up in the transaction cost with comic books that you need bigger books to really be meaningful. So it's like I don't start to look into arbitrage until I can find a book that's worth about 10 bucks more than what I pay for it. Just a couple of rules of thumb. Anyway, that's what it's a lot of stuff to throw out there today. I've talked about this quite a bit. I've got spreadsheets where I can track this, where I can identify whether the books that I have are in a good position to sell. And I'm working on a couple of systems to mark them up so that I can just look through my box and say, okay, these are the books that if they pop up on a hot list or something like that, I'll check the price, and if it's above the sticker price that I've attached to it, then it's good to sell. It's just so that I've got some key kind of flags in my box that'll yell out to me as information changes, so that I can play on them a little bit faster. And to me, that's really what you've got to do if you're going to play the speculation game. Okay, one last caveat before I sign off for the day. It's a little bit frustrating to me that the speculation game and the opportunities for arbitrage rely on people like me that are buying at below the market price, and then there are people that are still speculators typically that are buying at the high end of the market price, hoping for a future gain. And so every time somebody buys a book from me, I kind of expect them to eventually be frustrated by that purchase if they're buying as a speculator. I wish I knew how to solve that problem. That problem hurts me. So that's one of the reasons that I haven't been able to dive into this yet. Because I feel like my customers aren't going to be happy with their purchase in the long run, because I'm selling it for a really good return. They're not going to be able to get that return because they're buying it at full market price. That piece I haven't been able to resolve, and I always have trouble with that. So I'm not asking for a solution to that right now, but I just want to address the complexities of the philosophy behind speculation, and maybe why a conversation with me about it might be a little bit more interesting than somebody who just says, buy books, the market's hot, things like that. Just a little bit of a thinker. I'm involved with business. I think about this all the time. I try to make sure that the business that I do outside of comic books always brings value to the end user, and I don't know if that's the case in the speculation market, as far as the sellers into the speculation market providing value. Long philosophical conversation, but just thought I'd throw that out as the final piece. The market, I don't even know if the market's for me. Sometimes I feel bad about it. But that's comic books. I love them. I've enjoyed it. I pick up some cool books. I think it's really cool to find things like when I found Black Hammer for $4, I was like, dang, they didn't even know what they had. They had 2 copies of this. They weren't even in bags and boards. They were in bags, but they were just loose in a box. That guy had no idea where the market was on those books. I mean, they're only $15 a piece now, but I've already got $10 of arbitrage on each of those. So that's the cool stuff. Really fun to find it. Still not sure if it's my thing, but I've obviously put some money into doing it. A lot of fun books, and I think that my file just switched and I'm going to have to combine 2 files. That doesn't happen very often. But thanks for watching. Thanks for following through with this. Let me know your thoughts. I know that I went through a lot of philosophy and a lot of details on my views on speculation. It's always interesting, and I'm curious what other people are thinking out there. So thanks.